Good morning to you. Today is Friday, May 24th. It's about 6:08 in the morning. Again, I do this in the morning when the voice is nice and soft sometimes. Everyone's asleep, or my wife might be out of the house actually going to the gym already, so should be able to do this uninterrupted like I intend. This is going to be a little different than ones I've done recently because I'm not actually talking about a fiction book here. I'm talking about a parenting book. And it's the kind of parenting book where it's like understanding how your child thinks and what you may do to assist them to connect different parts of the brain and let them understand more fully what they're feeling, what they're thinking right now compared to themselves like in their lives. And you can kind of maybe do exercises to shift it just a little bit or just enough that you can maybe get them out of a mood and get them toward understanding. And the more understanding the child gets, the more, they call it whole brain, but the more complete they become. So it is a nice book. This actually is going to end up being almost like an unpaid infomercial for the next God knows how many minutes, because I usually do like my fiction novels, things I really enjoy, things I can get into and discuss the world that's being built and what I know in comparison. But this is a more serious topic. I myself have two young boys, so you're probably not going to be any much graphics that you're going to see up here as I segue off into something else. I just want to tell you about a book that my wife read, and she deals with children for her work. She thought it was very valuable, she liked it a lot, and she bought it for me so that I can read it too. So I'm going to bring it to you and tell you what's in this book that maybe you'll go out and there pick it up, because I'm only going to give you like a 30,000 feet high level overview of things. It's in the weeds, in the words that are typed in here, that you're really going to grab more of the concept than just someone telling you way at the top. So without further ado, so the book is modestly sized. It's about 170 pages, and the last 10 pages or so are going to be like indices and appendixes and that kind of stuff too. So it's what you consider a quick read because of its size and the content that drives you and brings you through it. It's separated out into 6 chapters, which I'll go through, and they actually do go in a very good linear format that you can start from the very basics and then start unlocking different areas that keeps building upon the area before it to get to where your child could be. And they say if the child has a good upbringing and they have good mental well-being on their upbringing, then when they become an adult, they should be solid. So here it is. Put it in here so it doesn't wash out too fast. The Whole Brain Child. 12 Revolutionary Strategies to Nurture Your Child's Developing Mind. Author is Daniel J. Siegel, MD, and Tina Payne Bryson, MD. They actually have another book out there apparently called The No Drama Discipline. So, by the way, nice little stamp here. More than 1 million copies in print. So you know it actually has hit a level of popularity. So if I go through this real quick, and I have, like I said, all my notes are right here. The first chapter kind of talks about you understanding how your child's brain works. You know, when they have emotional fits, when they're having temper tantrums, when there's something that they're going to say, no, but it's mine, and just really want to make you pull your hair out. You can dive into that just a little bit and try to figure out, you know, how is this child looking at something right now? What is taking up all their focus? You know, and then you, by learning that, can handle difficult situations in social environments and their emotional health and even their mental health. So they talk about, you know, how you have the two sides of the brain, the right side and the left side. And one side is all rational and cognitive, like that's the math side or the logic side. Then the other side is an imaginative, an emotional. So with these two halves, there is importance sometimes to mesh them together and integrate the two of them. Okay, there's section in the first chapter about having an experience and then talking about an experience. And that's the kind of thing that can tap into the emotional well-being of a child too, where it's like if they just had a playground mishap and it ended up with them with like getting hit in the face or skid knee or what have you. There's the, okay, this is too raw a painful moment right now to talk about. But maybe later on we can discuss what happened. And you might have to go through it like a therapist a couple times where you kind of tap into it and break down the emotional response and also move it a little bit more towards a logical response. Like, oh, this happened and this happened again, and you say it a third time and a fourth time. And as you go through it more and more, it becomes a familiar story that isn't just an accident that happened one day. It then becomes something you can draw upon and put into the long-term memory. And by doing so, it can become a basis for comparison for a future event or even a contra event. You could talk about, well, you're on a low right now, but remember that other time you thought you were on a low? You kind of got past that, didn't you? So it's a matter of just well-being. And they give an interesting visual in here. They call it the river of chaos. Like you're on a boat going down the middle of a river, you're fine. But if you go too far to the right, you have too many like rules and regulations, and it's very stoic. And you're not having any fun over there, and there's no room for you to grow over there. But if you go to the other side of the river, everything becomes extremely chaotic. You can't control a thing. It's just rapids and of emotions and experiences. So it's a matter of how can we like divert this child going from one side to the other and kind of leave them as middle as possible. So that first chapter really sets this thing up very well, giving you these kind of cues to tell you this is what's going on in your child. And as long as you can understand what's going on in your child, you should be able to nudge them in the right direction, or at least let them understand what's happening to one extreme or the other to bring them back to like a center. So it's a nice, simple, easy, well thought out first chapter. As they move on to the second chapter, now it talks about that right brain, left brain. And they say the left brain is, it desires order and logic, literal, linear thinking. It's one of the kind of things that would plan, orchestrate, and actually deal with things unfeelingly, let's say. Where the right brain goes through, and that's more holistic and nonverbal. You can see the facial expression and take a feeling out of it. The tones in the way someone speaks. Eye contact to make the speech more meaningful. And even the posture. Okay, so the thing is to bridge life between both sides. You can see an emotional flood come in, just completely overwhelming. Or there could be something that's more of an emotional desert where it's unfeeling and nothing else is happening. So, like they introduced in the first chapter, if there's like an outburst, it would necessarily be an emotional outburst. And then you want to redirect it passively towards like that center of the river thing. You don't do anything nice for me. My birthday isn't for 10 more months. I hate homework. That can all happen at one time. It's like, what the funk? All right. Let's just try to break this down. Why the hell would this kid be worrying about three things simultaneously? Where they're very, everything, always, never. Well, that's not true. Things don't happen like that. So, the response, of course, would be like, yeah, I always do nice things for you. I can't do anything to make your birthday come sooner. Well, you have homework, it's just the way it is. That would be like the regular response. You've brought up this thing, here's the counter argument. What do you want me to do? Live with it. Okay. But that doesn't help the left brain and the right brain to talk to one another. And it doesn't bring the boat to center again. You've provided a response, but it might be a logical response, but they're in an emotional state. So you can't bring a logical response to an emotional state. It's got to kind of, you know, and there is a point where it's people who grew up almost when I grew up can be like, well, you gotta talk to your kids and have long conversations to get past this one little quip. Well, there are times you should. And it's a matter of just being like an adult or a parent to breathe. Okay, let me handle this, not just deal with it. Let me handle this in a way that might make these things not come back. Okay, it's how we try to integrate both sides of the brain. So, in the example of, my birthday's not for 10 more months. It's like, well, remember the last time you had a birthday? I think we had a little party. Wasn't that nice? Do you remember all the toys and gifts that you had gotten on your last birthday? Now what we can do is we can plan ahead. We have 10 months to make your next one really good. So it's not just like the impatience of where is it? It's a matter of, okay, let's streamline this in a way saying, birthdays are good. I know why you like them. Let's remember the last one you had. Because if you forgot about it, then this next one that you want to happen immediately, you might forget about that pretty quickly too. So let's appreciate it. And now you're linking a year over year together. So it takes, like, whenever you're trying to deal with something like this, or, like I said, handle something like this, you take the tumult out of the storm, and it pushes things in the proper directions, not just the brain, the correct directions. And then, instead of being a storm, it's a rain over a farmer's crop. And that's what this book does teach you, in better words that I'm using right now. There's another thing too. What I say, the strategy is name it to tame it, where you make storytelling in the similar event that's going on here, and it brings a little bit of credence to the event. So, my dog ate my son's toy, and she wishes the dog were dead. And it's like, no, you don't. You just wish the dog never ate your toy. You don't want the dog to be dead. You just wish she didn't do what she did. Doesn't that sound better? That she'd not eat your toys instead of her being dead? And then you can kind of like bring that really, to a, oh, damn. You could tell a story about when the dog ate one of your own items, your book, your chair, maybe one of your own toys, and then she got sick, and then you take her to the hospital, and then you get the pieces out of the stomach. That was scary and expensive sometimes too, but you still love the dog, even though they did the bad thing. And you could say that with the kids too. And if you did a bad thing, would you like me to not love you anymore and wish you were dead? No, they'd probably respond to that in the positive. And they say, do you want the dog to go to the hospital? No? Well, maybe pick up some toys. So, because if the dog sees them on the ground, they might put them in her mouth. So if you pick up your toys, that whole dog eating toys thing is out of the way. It's pushed to the side. We don't have to worry about that anymore. So it takes the event and the strong emotion and kind of flattens the curve a little bit and makes things more good. More good. Make things better. Oh, Lord. So, again, strong chapter when it talks about the beginnings of just easing the road a little bit to make this emotion into something better. So now it moves forward. Now we're in chapter 3. And now we've heard about the right brain and the left brain. They have a new concept here called the upstairs brain and the downstairs brain. It goes into the thinking about it and controlling yourself aspects of the mind, where you might have, this one firing or that one firing, but now we can bring it from up and down. So the downstairs is somewhere from the brainstem. It's the limbic system, it's the amygdala. So they say from the top of your neck to the bridge of your nose. So like this is like your downstairs brain, so to speak. Maybe it's up here somewhere. I'm not sure. Primitive emotions, basic functions, primal emotions come out of there. So that's the kind of area that this downstairs brain is talking about. Whereas the upstairs brain has the cerebral cortex. So that's more evolved. It can see the big picture of things. It has sophisticated thinking, analytical thinking, not just a matter of the one side of the brain that's logical and linear, but it can actually go through an event or a process and take the whole thing in. So if your kids erupt for whatever the purpose might be, they pull a tantrum and they're even misbehaving in the public, like a restaurant or a mall, if people even go to malls anymore, this might all be the downstairs brain talking. Something happened and then went, and then boom, tantrum, eruption, snap judgments. Okay? Now the whole thing is a matter of connect and redirect all of that. They wanted the necklace. You didn't get them the necklace. Boom, hate you. Well, it wasn't fair that you didn't get the necklace, maybe. But you know something? That necklace wasn't for sale. Instead of going, just no. So it's one of those things where it's a matter of our ways of saying things. No is easy. No is obviously something a kid never, ever wants to hear. So and again, this goes against old-fashioned parenting. And there's nothing wrong with old-fashioned parenting. But things do evolve a little bit where we can find ways to say no, but not say no. Last night I had a similar example too. We have a couple Nerf guns in the house. We have two pistols and one like shotgun kind of thing. And the older one had the shotgun, but the younger one wanted it. So I had to talk to him. I was like, listen, you're in sharing. It's his turn now. No, I want it. I was like, I'll tell you what. And I walked him over. We found one of the handguns. And he was able to calm down enough that he had a Nerf gun. That it was able to take him through. And he wasn't in that storm tantrum phase any longer. And I was able to just talk to him calmly. And when he went into his his cries weren't as harsh as they were 5 minutes earlier. So I was already able to move the storm down a little bit. But then I walked with him hand in hand. We went to the next playroom. We picked up the one and he went click, 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 and he was fine. So I was able to get past it without me hearing stuff thing, just saying, no, your brother's got it, it's his turn. That wouldn't have helped the situation as much as what I did. As a parent, no means no. You're not going to get it. But then I have to realize that if I just say no, I'm going to have to deal with that noise. If I'm fine with it, okay. You just don't know if that noise is going to turn into a swing, a hit, a throw. So, to make peace of mind for everyone, there are times you have to be a little bit more liberal about this and just spend time and converse, even though the child is 3. I was able to get him off that shelf, so to speak. And that's what they call engagement. And they want you to engage the child, not to enrage the child with a no. How many bites of this dinner do I have to have before I can have a dessert? And then you tell the child that. You tell me how many bites would be acceptable of your dinner before you can have dessert. Or you're in the park and they want the frisbee that was just thrown in their direction. That frisbee doesn't belong to us. What if a boy came back to it and he couldn't find the frisbee because you picked it up? What if you were that boy? So it's kind of like that part of a thing where if we as parents can pause enough to have the conversation kind of one step further, we might be able to engage that primal area with the logical thinking area and make it a flowing up and down. And then the chapter wraps up with an exercise, and sometimes the exercise is exercise. In order to redirect that flowing blood to the brain that's like on this one thing and one thing only, get moving. A little physical activity, can really open up things enough that can distract the current issue and bring it to something else. So, a powerful chapter indeed. And like I said, what I'm saying is an introductory. It doesn't do justice to what you would read when you actually read it. Or listen to it. I have not done an audiobook on this, but I'm sure an audiobook should exist somewhere. Now we're halfway done with the book. If we go to the 4th chapter, it talks about how the memory works. And it talks about how they come together with connecting neurons and firing and having like experiences. It's the same reason why you might hear something that's a song, and the song might bring back a memory of something else. Why? Because when you did that, the song was playing. Now when you hear it again, you link the two. So it's not like a filing cabinet where you go through and find the song, and that's it. Or you find the song and then find things associated with it. It's the neurons have actually cemented those two little things together. And that's how everything will work as you go through it. Okay? You find an old picture, you see people in it, you might remember when the picture was taken, then you start thinking about other things that you did together around that setting. Like I saw a picture one time when I was a lifeguard many, many, many moons ago. And there's a picture of us standing, in front of the guard shack. And it's like, wow, and I remember all the names of the people. And I remember what kind of day it was. It was maybe a rainy day, so we had nothing to do. No one came to the pool. So we kind of just screwed around and played this, or maybe cleaned that, or just whatever. But all of a sudden, they all come flooding back by seeing the one photograph. And that's the neurons firing. All the like things to the one image start boom, 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 boom. Then along with the memory, it goes into, it's hard to say it this way. All right, so along with just the memories that come with seeing things with the neurons, there's also memories themselves and how they work. And they might work with this upstairs, downstairs as well. So if the child doesn't want to go through, I don't want to go swim. Well, it turns out there was one time that swimming was bad. So then they take it that every time swimming will be bad. So they have the one memory of the one bad thing that occurred. So now you got to kind of walk them through it sometimes. Show them the good ending of that whole experience. It didn't end with them drowning. It might have ended with them, you sputtered, you coughed, you had water in your lungs a little bit, but you got it out. But then you stayed in for a little bit and then got out later on, and we had a nice lunch, and then we saw the fireworks, and you kind of you got to go throughput of saying, yeah, the one thing did occur, but look at the things that surrounded it. Look what was happening before that happened. Look at how that one event did not affect the rest of it enough that you would think that it would A, always happen that way, or B, that one event was the outcome of the day. Sorry about that, a little itchy. So it's talking through it. It was an implicit event, but now you're making an explicit experience. So it's a way that you can say, all right, I don't want to swim because of the one bad thing. Now that we've talked about what happened before and what happened after, and we've seen other people go in the pool too, so therefore this thing is not going to happen every single time now, is it? So then you can gently ease them back in, and now they're a kid playing in the pool, splashing about, laughing with that high-pitched tone. Boom. You've gotten past it. You've actually done a little bit of therapy in a way, and now this shouldn't come up again. Okay? They even give you some more information in Chapter 4 about how the implicit memory and that explicit memory come together through the hypothalamus. So that's what you're really trying to get activated when you're discussing these things. You're taking fraction and emotional memories and putting them in their place and putting them through the steps to let them see the reality of an entire thing. So now that we've gotten this far, hopefully you're engaged enough. I mean, this is definitely something interesting enough if you want to go through that kind of a parenting style. But now we have to start linking together these different things into the same child. And they have this one wonderful phrase here called your mind sight. You know about your eyesight, but this is how your mind sees, okay? And understands how the mind works. Having the child understand how the mind works. So they throw a concept out there with a bicycle wheel where the center is the child, and on the rim are all the different things they might be concerned with, okay? Fear of a school performance, fear of an athletic thing they have to do. They want to sit down and watch TV. They want to sit down and play video games. What do they want for dinner tonight? These are all things, that can be concerns of the day. But in the meantime, no one of them should be the sole focus. Unless that's something you're working on. And it's interestingly enough, this isn't just a child way of looking at it. Adults do the same way. You can have your life and then your concerns about work, relationships, money, spiritual, memberships, whatever it might be. And if one of them overwhelms you so much to be almost depressing or crippling or overly concerned, you can find ways to ease back from that far out on the edge to come closer to the center. Oh, that's sure for it. So if you're way over here on this one part, understand you're all part of the zodiac. So that's you. This might be your main concerns here. And as you go spread out further, they get more and more specific and individually concerning. So the wheel might work exactly like this. And incidentally, it's just a coincidence I'm wearing this shirt today. So there's feelings of things versus what you are. With the child, they might try to do homework. Boom. They might try to do homework. Or they took a test and they got it back, or they can't figure out the answer. And they might be on the, I am stupid. I can't do this. I'm too dumb. Okay. Whoa, you're way out here right now. I can't do this backwards. Okay? You're way out here right now. But the thing is, let's try to say this a little bit differently. Don't say I am stupid. See, I feel stupid at this moment. See, the one is I am, is you think that's what you are and that's all you are. But you know something? Let's go a little bit further on the wheel, and I cannot look down this far. Let's go further on the wheel. Now we're over here, let's say. Remember that time you took all those magnets and the blocks and you put together this huge tower and you had bridges in there and there was little houses and you had like your cars or whatever and they went through and you had this whole engagement activity with your toys? Well, do you think an architect that can build, an engineer, a smart guy that can build something that big is stupid? No. So you might feel stupid because of homework, but over here, I'm trying to do this through the camera, but over here, you're actually doing very well when it comes to building. So we know that you are not stupid. Just doing this particular homework is making you feel stupid because you don't understand it. So it can take something that's hyper-focused and kind of bring it back down the pyramid of abstraction. And when you move along, you're communicating this and you're getting them to understand their self more thoroughly. And this, and again, with adults as well, it can replace their anger and anxiety by incorporating a more thorough person. They think they are the task. Even the adult might think they are the task. If there's athletic people and non-athletic people, and one of them gets pulled into, or they both get pulled into a basketball game, the athletic person might be doing some extraordinary feats. But then you give it to the other person who's not athletic, and they might be the chucker. Or they might be just so scared to do anything they pass it off as soon as possible. Now, that's just an insecurity over that situation. But then again, there could be times that you could say, well, you know something? The other shooter was in trouble. They passed it to you. Now the focus was on you, and the guy who was in trouble was able to come all the way to the other side of the court, and when you passed it back to him, they made the shot. So you fed it. You're the assist. So don't feel so anxious about not being able to do what they did. Do what you can do. Everyone talks about when the NBA, back in the 80s and 90s or whatever else, Chicago was the dream team. Michael Jordan was the star. Yeah, Michael Jordan can do all this kind of stuff. But then you had a Scottie Pippen out there, or Dennis Rodman. It was like, we're going to get the rebounds. And with the rebounds coming through, I'll make sure I get the ball back to you. So I'm going to have my job to take the ball off their missed shot and get it really into a good offensive area for us. They might not score the most points on the game, but they assisted in the scores and the most points being made by your team. So that's why if they're too far out on the edge of the wheel, this one's here, this one's here. Okay, if they're too far out on the edge of the wheel and hyper focused on that one thing, bring them back in and show them something else. Somewhere in these discussions too, you could talk about how these emotions that you're feeling are only temporary. They're right now concerns, not overall concerns. You bump a table with your head or your arm or your leg. Ouch. Okay. It will heal. My father was always like, you'll get better before you're married. But sometimes they don't want to hear that. But then if you tell them something like, well, guess what? You banged your knee on the table. Do you think you have to go live in the hospital forever? No, you're here. It's not bad enough that you have to go to the hospital whether you're afraid of a hospital or not. And if they are afraid of a hospital, go back to the water and the pool example. Why are you afraid of the hospital? What happened in the hospital? Let's talk about how well the hospitals work. Let's talk about all the hospital shows my wife watches. Obviously, there's some things here. You banged your whatever on the table. You don't have to go to the hospital forever. So you know it's going to come down. You stub your toe in the chair. Remember you did that last week? Well, does your toe hurt anymore? It doesn't. So now this isn't going to hurt much more. It will go away. And you link the two experiences together. You stubbed the toe last week. You hit your head this week. Boom. Now those two neurons might fire together. So if a third event happens later in life, it might reference these and be like, oh, it's temporary. Okay. Can I have a lollipop now? And you're moving on that rim of the wheel. And they kind of emphasize here in a very good way, where if the kid bumps their knee, it's not just like, I'll take you for ice cream. Okay, because it is a reward or a treat that will distract them, but it's not connecting the two events as much. Yeah, I bumped my knee, I'm getting ice cream. Well, first of all, you don't want every time you get bumped a knee, go find some ice cream. But there is a thing about, let's talk about the knee, talk about the past, and to make sure the future's good. Okay, you know something? Let's move on from this. Let's get a treat. Not just like, ow, ice cream. So it's that kind of mindset that will be a mechanism to assist the child or even the adult, like I said, from moving around in their headspace. That's where the mindset comes into play. That's the whole mind you got here. How do we get from this section to this section to that section? Is by being able to say, all right, this thing here coming back. Now, my own personal add-on is if there's something being focused on, like for instance, if this is my mind and I'm like, I gotta mow the lawn and we gotta do some landscaping over there, and then call the dude that comes in to fix the sprinkler because I am gonna bury it when I do my landscaping. Okay, those are different areas. So when I can go mow the lawn, mow the lawn, I am focusing on mowing the lawn right now. Keeping my eyes open for little dog treats that are in the yard, or keeping eyes open for, my Nerf bullets have been fired and not found. So if I see these things, I'm going to be on my task. So I'm focused on my task because that's being done currently. I don't have to keep going back to the middle and worry about, oh, wait, maybe I have a financial woe I have to be concerned about. Or that vacation she wants to take. How expensive is that going to be? I'm just like, all right, I'm doing this one task. And when I'm done, it kind of comes off the wheel. Now the landscaping. Over here. So it's the landscaping thing. All right. Talk to the wife. Tell her the plan. Plan it out. How are we going to do this? What kind of soil do we need? We're hyper-focused on the one task, so the whole thing isn't worrying me. Now that one task might have some trials and tribulations along the way, but I know that once it's done, it's done. So, the mindset. Now it gets to a very interesting thing too. So the last chapter of the book, before the conclusion, but the last chapter talks about, now that you've got your child to understand their emotions, their right and their left, their up and their down, their wheel, their mindset. Now how do they do with other people? And they call this the me-we connection. It's a good chapter to end on, and I do suggest that you read the whole way through to get to it. This is where you take the me you've been working on and now focus this towards others who have their own me. So it's kind of sharing, but a little bit better than that. Sharing is definitely a good start for this. You go out there, this thing I had last night. So I had two boys, one had the one toy the other toy wanted to have. Now, I'm against what others in my family will do is they'll just buy a second toy. Okay, I'm against that. We have the one's fine. We don't need to have two of it, everything. So, it's like, if this is going on, it's like, remember, he got it for his birthday. That's his toy. And I like you guys sharing your toys, but when there's only one of them, maybe you can take some turns. But remember, that is his toy. He owns it. So if he wants to share it, he will, and I'll talk to them, maybe they will share it. But you're trying to say, you can't have it always, because what's going to happen to the other person's feelings? It's their birthday toy. They want to play with it. And if you take it, now you might make them sad. And actually, that example didn't come out as good as I thought it would, but that's what it links together. It's, you've got your way of looking at things, saying, I want it, but understand that they want it too. And would you like it if you wanted it and had it, and they took it from you? So, this whole thing circles to try to make the mindset stronger and aware, and then that will take a strong leap forward. So circling back to the beginning of the book, the understanding your child, they misbehave, you get angry. They don't listen, you might begin not liking them too much. But and this might come across with some kind of like, that is how I was raised syndrome here. Or even, I don't want to do things the way my parents did things. But without knowing the converse way of approaching these situations, it might be difficult to find it on your own. So with all these things about like they're in this headspace, you have to shift them over to the middle road, not the other side, the middle road. And sometimes even to do this as a parent, you got to talk with a friend. And if you don't have that kind of type knit community of friends or even family, you could talk to a therapist. You know, they're only there to help you. But you get back into your child's life, and then a strong bonding will be able to focus their attentions to be more well-minded. And when they're well-minded, that's where you want them to be. They might grow up to be even more well-minded. So that's what I have to say about this. I'm surprised I was in there for 40 minutes already. But this is, like I said, this is the whole brain child as it washes out with my white screens. Take a look at it. You know, Amazon can deliver it to you in a couple days. Your library might have it. Might be some audio versions available too, so you can listen to it in probably about 2-3 hours tops. But I suggest this for you. Okay? Otherwise, thank you for listening. Enjoy. As I always say, keep reading. Bye-bye now.